Good afternoon. Today we are honored to have Dr. Jayakrishna Ambati as our guest in the studio here at the University of Kentucky. Dr. Ambati is the professor and vice chair of UK's Department of Ophthalmology and Visual Sciences and is an internationally recognized authority on age-related macular degeneration research. Dr. Ambati and his team have made significant advances towards finding treatments for AMD, one of the leading causes of blindness in people over the age of 50 worldwide. Since coming to UK in 2001, Dr. Ambati has assembled a team of top-tier scientists and clinicians from around the world to help solve the puzzle of macular degeneration. Findings from Ambati's lab have been published in the most prestigious scientific journals, such as Nature, Cell, Nature Medicine, the Journal of Clinical Investigation, and the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. Welcome, Dr. Ambati. Basically, the way this is going to work is I'm going to move out of the way, and I'll be asking some questions of Dr. Ambati. And if you have any questions along the way, you are encouraged to tweet us at UK Newsroom or go to /newsroom. So just to begin the interview portion of this virtual press conference, just to give our audience some background, tell me a little bit about your research focus here at the University of Kentucky.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you very much for having me here. My group and I study a disease called age-related macular degeneration. It is, as you mentioned, one of the leading causes of blindness worldwide. It affects some 30 to 50 million people around the world. Just by way of prevalence, that exceeds all the cases of Alzheimer's disease as well as solid tumors around the world. So it's a condition that has an enormous impact both on the individual as well as on society.
You came here in 2001, as I mentioned, and now in 2014, you are receiving the prestigious National Institutes of Health Directors Pioneer Award. When you received this news, what went through your mind?
Well, obviously, I was really thrilled and ecstatic because it's not only such a prestigious honor for me individually, but also for my team, my group, and even more so for all those who have helped us, who have collaborated with us, and who have supported us over the years. So it was a fantastic moment. And also, it's something that makes us very cognizant of the fact that this is not merely an award for past accomplishments, but rather one that's intended to spur us to make more groundbreaking achievements in the future.
So what does this award mean to you as a researcher?
Well, it's always a wonderful thing to be recognized by your peers, especially by an award that's as competitive as this one is. It also, I think, is a recognition not only for our group in specific, but also for the importance of macular degeneration research and ophthalmology in general that's being acknowledged at this national level.
This award will support your study involving a newly discovered type of DNA. Explain to me what this type of DNA is and how you plan to further the research surrounding this discovery.
Sure. This is probably the most exciting discovery that we made in the last dozen years in my group. We all know that we get DNA from our parents, and the vast majority of it is in the nucleus, in the chromosomes. But it's also commonly known there's a small amount of DNA in the mitochondria, so-called mitochondrial DNA, which we inherit from our mothers. What we have discovered is there is yet another type of DNA that's not in the chromosomes and it's not in the mitochondria, and it seems to be as abundant as the mitochondrial DNA, and it seems to be playing some very interesting and important functions in the cell and in the organism.
What kind of impact could this DNA have on biology and medicine?
Well, anytime you find something that hasn't been found before, it can also, it has the potential for opening entirely new doors, not only in biological understanding, but also in the understanding of various diseases, so for medicine at large. In particular, we found that there's an abundant amount of this third type of DNA in diseases like macular degeneration. So we think that they may be playing an important role in the development of this disease, as well as other neurological conditions that are associated with aging.
What are the challenges of studying a newly discovered type of DNA?
The challenges are enormous and many. First of all, even discovering this was a challenging enterprise because often it's difficult to recognize something's existence when you don't even know it's there. A lot of the tools that you need to study this are also something that we had to develop. It's almost as if you had to reinvent the wheel in developing new biological strategies to discover this DNA and to understand what it's doing. So we're actually in the process of refining these tools to understand the function of these new DNA molecules.
What kind of impact could furthering the study surrounding this newly discovered type of DNA have on people worldwide?
So one of the things that's most interesting to us is, as I mentioned, in macular degeneration, as well as in some other aging disorders, we found an increased amount of this third type of DNA. So we're convinced that it's quite likely that this DNA is doing something to either propel the progression of these diseases or maybe actually involved in the development of these diseases. So if we find that that's the case, certainly it would be valuable not only from an understanding of these disease processes, but also in terms of developing new drugs that can transform or modulate this new type of DNA in the hopes that we can offer new treatments for patients with these conditions.
And let me remind our audience that if they have any questions they would like me to ask Dr. Ambati, just be sure to go to twitter.com/UK Newsroom, or you can tweet questions at UK Newsroom. We will go on and ask a few more questions of you, Dr. Ambati. I just would love to know what attracted you kind of in the first place to research surrounding macular degeneration?
Well, as I was a resident training in ophthalmology, I always knew that I wanted to go into an investigative physician-scientist career. And it seemed to me that the disease that was the most dramatic, both in its prevalence as well as its impact in our field, was this one, age-related macular degeneration. It affects some 10 million Americans, and at the time that I was in training, there were no treatments whatsoever that were able to improve the vision for patients with this condition. So not much was known about it, not only from a therapeutic perspective, but also from a basic understanding perspective. So it was a natural fit for me, because I'm someone that always loved puzzles, and being in a field where the goal is to help patients, it was the greatest puzzle of all.
Tell me a little bit about your development of the new therapeutic to treat the dry form of age-related macular degeneration.
Sure. So it actually came about in the process of discovering this new type of DNA. The dry form of macular degeneration, which affects some 80 to 90% of people with this condition, currently has no treatments at all. And people have a slow but inexorable progression of their vision loss, to the point where more than 1 million Americans today suffer from blindness due to dry macular degeneration. So we found a drug, a class of drugs, that actually can, we think, stop the progression of the dry form of macular degeneration. And we're working with a biotech company to initiate a phase 1 clinical trial to actually test that hypothesis. So we're very excited by the fact that we can transform this basic discovery into a potential new treatment for a currently unmet medical need.
What are kind of the next steps in that process?
So the next steps are the processes that are involved in running a clinical trial and recruiting patients, testing the safety and ultimately the efficacy of this drug class. So we expect that process to start in the coming year, and if all goes well, then we hope to have a new therapeutic available in the coming years.
What are your hopes for the future of this research?
Well, my hope as a group for this research that we do in macular degeneration is to put ourselves out of business. What we're interested in is developing treatments that make blindness from macular degeneration a thing of the past. So we're in this to actually solve this problem in its entirety. So with the fantastic team that I've been fortunate to assemble, a team of some 20 postdoc fellows, students, and scientific analysts. We hope that with some serendipity that we'll get there in the not too distant future.
And let me pause again to say that if you have any questions for Dr. Ambati, you can go to twitter.com/UK Newsroom, or you can tweet at UK Newsroom. You mentioned working with students and with postdoc students as well. What does all of these new discoveries in your award mean for that process, the education process?
So I have a very sort of unique perspective on this. I come from a family of college professors, so does my wife. And as such, I've always been inculcated into the importance of knowledge and education as a whole. So to me, the greatest gift that one can give to another is the gift of knowledge. And the greatest joy that a teacher has is when his or her student surpasses them. And I'm confident that several of the students that I have trained over the years and I'm training now will enable me to achieve that joy.
You see patients with retinal disorders, particularly the age-related macular degeneration. What makes these disorders so damaging worldwide, not just here in the United States, but all across the world?
Well, there are a compendium of factors. The first is, as I mentioned, the prevalence is really dramatic, but that's only half the story. We all know that the world's population is aging. The number of people who are going to be over the age of 65 in this country is going to double or triple in the next 20 years, and that's a phenomenon that's occurring worldwide. In fact, next year is a watershed year for humans on this planet. There will actually be more people over the age of 65 on Earth than there are under the age of 5. So we are an aging species on this planet, and as such, age-related macular degeneration is going to be with us long into the future as a dramatically important problem. But on an individual level, when it robs people of the very way in which they can live their daily lives, being able to recognize their grandchildren, being able to drive, being able to do the simplest of tasks that they used to take for granted, that inability to do so, the devastation that occurs on an individual level, is equally dramatic. And so that's something that drives me every day.
You know, it just strikes me having this conversation with you that you are a teacher in many ways, and you are a clinician, and you're a researcher, and you kind of embody all that a research flagship university should. How important is having all three of those in what you do every day?
Well, it's been said that this, concept of the physician-scientist is an endangered species, and so in some ways, I guess I am, like others, a dinosaur in that regard. But hopefully, the priorities of institutions and of funding agencies and the government and society will change in order to enable more physician scientists to make more discoveries. I must say that I've been very fortunate personally to benefit from the institutional support both at the university as well as College of Medicine and UK healthcare level, and my department has been enormously supportive as well. But perhaps most important of all has been the support that I've had not only from my amazing group of fellows and students and analysts, but most important from my family, and particularly from my wife, who's a pillar of strength that enables me to go forward.
I guess, how does it make you feel that the research that you're doing, you've been a big trailblazer in all of this, how do you feel that it so directly can impact patients?
Well, I'm fortunate to be studying a disease that I see whenever I see patients in my clinic. This is not a rare bird disease. Not to say that those aren't important conditions, but this is something that's of tremendous societal importance. It makes me feel that on an individual level, when I treat a single patient, I'm affecting their life and their family's life. But when my group and I are able to develop potential new treatments, it's a way to transform the lives potentially of thousands or millions of people. And for a physician or a scientist, there is no greater purpose or joy.
We're getting down to our last questions here for Dr. Ambati. So let me remind you that if you have any questions, please tweet them to @UKNewsroom or visit twitter.com/newsroom. One thing that I think that everyone who has been able to watch this could say is that you're very passionate about this area of research. Why is that?
I suppose I'm very passionate about it because I see what it does to people. I've been at UK for the last 14 years, and there are patients that I have seen sometimes more often than my relatives because I see them so frequently, and they become a part of my larger family. Some of these patients treat me so well for doing my job, which is simply to restore their vision. Some of them have made quilts for my little children when they were born. So in that sense, they are dear family to me. And when their vision is affected, it's a personal thing. And so what being a physician who sees these patients both in bad and good times has enabled me to do is to carry those insights to the lab where my group and I can use those insights to actually develop new understandings and develop new treatments. So I suppose this very direct and personal relationship that I have with patients who suffer from the condition that I research is what makes me passionate about this work that I do.
According to this release, you are the first ophthalmologist to win this award since its inception in 2004. What does that mean to you?
Well, winning this award from the NIH, that's generally considered its most prestigious award, is of course tremendously thrilling and humbling. It's a great honor, both for me and my group. Being the first ophthalmologist to do so is equally of joy, but perhaps it's a reflection of the fact that the field of ophthalmology as a whole is wandering more into the limelight, as it were, and it's being recognized for the importance that it plays in the field of medicine and in research, and hopefully I won't be the last ophthalmologist to win this award in coming years.
Is there anything else that you would like to say about this award or about your research?
I'd like to encourage people to visit our website to find out more about what we do. And also, this is a time in which research funding from the federal government for biomedical research is dwindling in real dollar terms. If we were to look at the budget of the National Eye Institute, it's a mere $2 per person per year for every person in this country. I think we'd all agree that understanding vision and developing new treatments for blindness is worth more than $2 of our money for a year. And so we as a society, through our representatives, have to ensure that there's greater support in Congress for increased funding for biomedical research.
Do you have any other questions as of now? Okay. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today, and I do want to remind our audience that an entire copy of